what is most amazing is how everything started. We met Steve in Miami Beach for Art Basel.
And the gallery was very generous, and they gave us an incredible platform presenting a big installation piece in the context of that Art Basel. And it was an installation that was perhaps 25 feet tall, you know, made out of ribbons. He really loved the piece. He really liked it. And perhaps he was able to see what we didn't. And that was that piece eventually became our proposal for the museum itself, for the very corner of the museum.
But also I remember that when we sent him the first sketch or drawing of the proposal, we said, he's gonna have a heart attack. We're gonna scare him, so then we can do smaller things that are gonna be. We never thought that he would say, I love it, he said it. And so I said, okay, we have to do it.
And the mask, we call it the mask because masks in culture, you know, from the carnival in Venice to Mexican masks are able to provide us a kind of temporary new identity. This was a kind of urban mask that allowed the museum to perform something absolutely new in a way.
And different.
And for us, it was interesting that the mask as such, you know, is an element that belongs both to Venetian culture, but also to Latin American culture and African culture. And in a way, you know, it's a kind of universal, it's an element that is universal in a way, in its capacity to allows us to a moment of freedom.
And also one thing that we were very fond of doing the piece in the corner of the building, because we do a lot of work outdoors too. We do big pieces, social spaces outdoor. So we had this opportunity to the museum piece, but also it became an icon or a point of reference to the city outdoors. So
I mean, it requires, you as an artist need a lot of support.
From the museum.
A lot of support, you know, an incredible degree of support. Stephen is the hero because he was able to see what we were proposing in a way that perhaps we were not able to. Because if we would have been able to see what we were proposing, perhaps we had been scared and we would have run away from it. So thank you, Stephen. And listen, we love to see you soon again. And peace and love.
I first was with MMoCA probably about 15 years ago for a triennial exhibit. What impressed me the most was the attitude of the staff. I've worked with multiple museums in the past, and they're all wonderful, but there was something unique about the staff at the Madison Museum. They were very friendly and open, very approachable, and it was very refreshing for me as an artist. After exhibiting in that first triennial, I met Stephen, the director, and it became apparent to me why the entire staff was the way they are. It's because, you know, everything trickles down from the top. It seems the staff that Stephen had put together at the museum reflected his attitude about, and his attitude and commitment about the arts and the people that create it and the people that support it. I would consider myself a friend of Stephen's, and I think he probably feels the same way. I just really appreciate having known him.
I met Steve Fleischman when I did this piece at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, 1988. This piece, which is up in this exhibition, is called Texas Instruments. I spent a year with my family living in Houston when our son was born. Since we were going to be there just temporarily, all the stuff I had collected to make art out of, I decided that I would use it all up by the time we left. And the last drigs and drabs that hadn't found their ways into sculptures all ended up in this piece, Texas Instruments. My mother came to visit during the installation, and they were actually that day putting up the signage that said, Donald Lipsky, A Brief History of Twine. Well, my mother said to the person putting it up, "Oh, it should really say Donald Lipsky, Sylvia Lipsky's son, A Brief History of Twine." She thought that was hysterical. Well, I, of course, mentioned this to Steve, and when he was setting up the show, unbeknownst to me, he made the sign, "Sylvia Lipsky's son, Donald Lipsky, A Brief History of Twine." And so when she came up, when I came up, and all her friends from Chicago came up, that sign was there and just blew people away.
I have fond memories of Steve and all the opportunities I had to convey with him different ideas about what I was doing at that different particular times as an artist. As we all know, the museum, especially under Steve's guidance and directorship, has provided an incredible format and opportunity for so many of the Madisonians and those outside of Madison and around the country to come and see some wonderful exhibitions that Steve put together. The particular painting that you'll have in this show that's of mine, which is an untitled 1975 piece, I believe, a trapezoid piece, which I understand was acquired through the generosity of Mark and Judy Bednar's collection, who have been incredible supporters of my work over the years. This is a great opportunity for me. I'm very, very honored to be a part of it. And again, not only for myself as an artist, but I also taught at the University of Wisconsin, as I know some of you are aware of. And I had an opportunity to bring my students there often and shared many of the wonderful exhibitions as well as just the art that's in place at different times.
My first real interactions with the museum were back in 1996, 97 with a show on local collections. I had been collecting outsider artwork and photographs for a while with my wife Liz, and using mostly student loans, and being invited to participate as part of that community was thrilling. Not long after, I started showing with Dean Jensen in Milwaukee, and sometime after my first show with him, I was contacted by Stephen Fleischman and Sarah Krajewski about an exhibit in the Upper Gallery, and they offered me my first solo show. This was incredibly reaffirming as a young artist. And if I'm being honest, it was a beautiful gift. It was during this time that the museum bought Ursa Memoriam. It's this ongoing support and interaction that was so meaningful as a young artist, and in many ways made me the artist I am today. So thank you for that, Stephen.
My time at MMoCA was for the Almost American show, which was curated by Sarah Krajewski. I try and connect to the area in the way that an artist does. Typically, for me, a student artist would be to go out into the field and literally draw and paint, research historical sites. But it was late spring, and I went out to Wyalusing Park. And I noticed that it just happened to be like a congregate of hawks and birds and eagles flying in a circle. And so I went back and I was super excited to look at these things so closely. And I asked Sarah to, if we could do a short residency of maybe a week or something. And then the museum graciously acquiesced and said, yes, we can fund this, found a hotel nearby, and you just go and draw. Out of that came the series of 4 watercolors that are in your collection. I can look at those watercolors, I can tell you pretty much exactly where I was from the park, looking out over the cliff and into the water. So that was a really great experience, actually.
Madison Art Center, which it was at the time, was really formative in my career. I believe it was the first museum where I showed work from my meetings series. I exhibited that work as part of a group show called Extraordinary, American Place in Recent Photography, and that was, I believe, in 2001. And there were other really terrific artists in the show, some of whom I already knew. Greta Pratt is a great photographer who is from Minnesota. She's in Virginia now. Todd Heido was part of the show, and Catherine Opie. We had breakfast after the opening, Greta, Todd, and myself. And I was only meeting Todd for the first time, but I was aware of his work. And he asked me if I had gallery representation. I said, no, not really. And he said, oh, well, we've got to fix that. You should show this with Julie Saul Gallery in New York. That led to acquisitions by other museums in New York and around the country. So it all started at a restaurant over a breakfast table in Madison.
You know, when I had my show with the Madison Art Center, which is what the museum was called then, it was extremely moving to me and very, very special in a way that really no other show has been. I was completely independent of my parents, completely independent financially, completely out of my ken geographically. I knew no one when I moved to Madison. And it was very, very exciting. Those years were the years in which I became a serious, independent-minded artist. And so to have the art institution of Madison, the institution, the one that everyone looked up to, invite me to have a show of my work that I had been working on for years with the poet John Ashbery, it felt like an enormous feather in my cap, an enormous circle that was closed, an enormous homecoming, and it was just like, it filled my heart to go there. What's been amazing about the arc of Steve Fleischman's career is that he has stayed in Madison. He has been an ongoing part of the community. He has totally been there. He's not a curator who's got one eye on the museum and the other eye on the next museum. And so I think that steadfastness and that depth and that level of commitment to not only the museum, but also being a member of the fabric of the community, I think that's made the museum have the gravitas that it has. And Madison has been very lucky to have someone for 30 years. It's a real rarity in the world now.